Hello and welcome to Radio NIGP. The word of the day for this month is actually several words in the form of a very timely question. Return to the office or not? There has been lots of discussion around this topic lately. Some companies have made the decision to allow their employees to continue to work virtually. At my school district, we're still having the discussion, and a decision has not been made for employees as to whether or not we will continue to telework. There are some companies that have ceased their lease agreements and made the firm decision to continue to work virtually. So stay tuned and listen to the other segments of our show as we continue to discuss the question of the day. Return to work or not? Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
As we open the book to NIGP's chapters this month, we find the chapter leaders and the chapter ambassadors are asking the same question we are for the office. Should we stay or should we go? With the transition of returning to the office or not, the chapters and ambassadors also have to make the decision of when it is best to return to in-person meetings and visits. While in-person meetings are starting to take place in some areas of the country, others have already made the decision to remain virtual for the remainder of the year. And yet, many, like my chapters here in Tennessee, are aiming for an in-person fall conference. And what about hybrid meetings? Are we really going back to in-person only meetings, or will we need to offer both options, especially when travel distances or travel conflicts prohibit our members from attending meetings and conferences? Even though travel is possible, many are not ready to go yet, let alone sit in a room with a large number of people for a day or two. Even though I miss my NIGP and chapter family, I know it is very convenient to attend a meeting via Zoom, not having to leave work, having the ability to jump from one meeting to the next, no travel forms required, and still get the important education I need for my career. It's time for us to engage those tech-savvy members. We are probably going to need some equipment to stream to our audience and volunteers who know how to do it. A penny for your thoughts? Join me as we turn the page to learn how our chapters plan to proceed in the upcoming months.
A penny for my thoughts from my friend DJ Penny O. I like that. Hope it sticks. The best answer I can offer from the Sunshine State is that we indeed are going back to in-person, but with a little bit of the hybrid models that have been developed over the last few months. In fact, tomorrow, June 4th, the Tampa Bay area chapter will hold its first in-person meeting in over a year. We did attempt to have one in December of 2020, but it was not well attended, so we went back for the next few meetings to the virtual model only. So tomorrow, June 4th, as I speak to you now, it's Thursday, June 3rd, we will be going back to this time in person only. And I'm not certain what registration has been like at this point because we are not offering a virtual option at this first meeting. But I do think that once we see what the attendance is like and the feedback we receive, and I feel like we will probably offer a virtual attendance offering as well. There are 3 chapters in Florida that I know of that were using the hybrid, or as we're calling it, the blended model of in-person and a virtual attendance offering as well, long before COVID. And they did this basically to improve on their attendance, and it's worked for them for a long time. So here's what one last thought. Many chapters offer scholarship points for chapter meeting attendance. So the question becomes, do we offer the same amount of points for those attending online? I would think so, but something that I believe will be examined at the very least. The bottom line is this. I don't think these technology advancements that we have made will be going away completely and have found their way into some best practices. I only think it's going to grow from here. So that's my take, Penny. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Kara Daniel, President for the Missouri Association of Public Purchasing. This year, like so many other chapters, our board has faced some really difficult decisions. We have decided as a board to keep all of our events through the remainder of 2021 and a virtual platform. One of the things that I have been really excited about that we have been able to bring to our members is MAP has partnered with Lourdes Costs, and we are doing webinars once a month for our members, so they're still getting that professional development. I miss seeing everybody in person, but this is the next best thing. So we are trying to adapt to the virtual world. We're very thankful for our partnership with Lourdes, and I'm glad that we can still bring really great content to our members, even though we cannot be together.
Hi, and welcome to your Tech Tip for the Month. I'm Stephanie Akerley, and today we're going to focus on cybersecurity attacks, specifically ransomware. What is ransomware, and why should you be concerned? Ransomware is a type of malware, and malware is a type of software that is intentionally designed to cause damage to your computer, server, client, or computer network. Specifically, ransomware takes your data and holds it hostage until a ransom is paid. The ransom is usually a set amount for a short period and quickly increases as hours and days go by. Once the ransom is paid, usually in Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, the infected party is given a key or code to unlock and restore their data. Or maybe, depending on the attackers, the payment of the ransom will get you some of your data and another ransomware notice. I'm sure that many of you were grumbling this past month when, for a few days, on the East Coast, there was panic about the ability to get gas. This gas shortage was prompted by a ransomware attack on Colonial Pipeline. Colonial Pipeline supplies roughly 3 million barrels of fuel a day from Texas to New York. On May 7th, Colonial Pipeline learned that it was the victim of a cybersecurity attack utilizing ransomware. This cyber attack nearly brought the East Coast to a grinding halt. The cost to get the key from the attackers was $4.4 million. And how did Colonial Pipeline get infected? The company is currently pointing to email. In fact, in most cases, malware enters the network through an email. It gets in and infects the system in the background unnoticed. The spread of the infection can take days, weeks, even months. It is often slow, steady, and therefore undetected. JBS, which supplies more than 1/5 of all beef in America, has had all of its beef plants offline since May 30th. This halt in supply is due to a ransomware attack on the company's IT systems used at various stages of the meat packing process, including billing and shipping. This attack will likely lead to increased costs and shortages of meat for customers. Victor Lemur and I had a chance to witness the effects of ransomware firsthand. We went to Baltimore, Maryland to teach developing and managing requests for proposals in May of 2019. The morning we arrived on site to teach, we were told that approximately 1/4 of the students would not be able to attend and that there was no phone or internet service. Baltimore City had been the victim of a ransomware attack that took down most of the government's computers. The ransom was $76,280. Baltimore City chose not to pay, and it took the city approximately 2 months to restore their employees' access to their work accounts. These attacks are just highlights of a genuine threat to cybersecurity. Computer hackers are getting results through their persistence and the current heightened cyber traffic due to the pandemic. While many companies and jurisdictions are quickly working to tighten their cybersecurity and become less vulnerable to such threats, you may be the key to help your jurisdiction stay safe. You know that email your friend forwarded to you at work with the attachment of some really funny jokes? That joke attachment was full of malware, and now your entire jurisdiction is under attack from one email. Not really all that funny now, is it? Thanks for tuning in. Look for Christy and June with your monthly tech tip.
Well, hello once again out there in the NIGP world. We're coming to you from Radio NIGP again. And this time we want to talk about the situation coming up where more and more people are thinking about coming back to the office. And so we're gonna kick around a few things here in this group about things about think about what may be good for one entity might not be good for another. And I'm kind of in the interesting position of not having to worry about it because I've been retired for over 10 years and don't have an office to go back to. I haven't had people to supervise and everything else. But my colleagues here have had to deal with that. So I'm just going to jump to one of you guys here and about what your current situation is and what you're planning to do in the next few months as things begin to open up. So whichever one of you wants to kick things off.
Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sure. So I'm in the transit industry, and obviously we have been essential workers, and our drivers and rail operators have been out and in the office, during the pandemic, before the pandemic, and now. So obviously we want to support our drivers and operators and return to the office as quickly as we can and as safely as we can. From that perspective. And so I think for us, it's essential that we do what we can to show support to our rail and bus operators. So,
yeah.
So I think I think coming back to the office is, I think that's a good way to show the support.
Has everybody in your agency been considered essential, or was there some part of it that was staying home and working from home?
Absolutely. So all the administrative folks have been working from home since last March.
Okay.
And so if I were the operators, I would think that there's some unbalance in there somewhere because they had to be in the office and showing up in the office every day, and but it wasn't safe for us to all congregate in the office, and so that was not ideal either. And so now, as most of us have been vaccinated, I think it's appropriate for us to to show that support to our operators.
Don, you're in education field. How's it been working with you?
Yeah, well, we of course immediately last March, the students were sent home and did everything virtually for that rest of that semester. We had some people that just were sent home. Some people worked from home, and some people like myself came in to the office for 3 to 4 hours a day, but we definitely kept our distance and everything like that. Back July, right after 4th of July, everyone was invited to come back to campus and work on campus. Higher education, at least for us, it's important for us to have a physical presence. True, we could probably work from home in more than we did, but students, research has shown that students that are on campus, active in campus life, tend to get better grades, stay in school longer, make more money, and give more alumni donations. So there's some long-term benefits to having the campus open. Right now, the plans are for students to be back full-time, face-to-face classes in the fall. Obviously, the vaccination has helped tremendously in that area. But I know there are other places. I talked to a lot of people around the country, suppliers that are working from home still. I've talked to one of our peers who basically has said they're not going to go back to the office ever. They've decided to continue to work like they have. Yeah. But I think there's some things you've got to be careful about there. they have made a real strong effort to have regular virtual meetings,
Right.
So that like daily, weekly meetings, so that they don't lose track of each other. But I see some pros and cons. It depends.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a friend who's his office has been he's a procurement director. He's been working from home and his staff has as well. But he does periodic check-ins, and maybe once a week they'll have a quick staff meeting online so everybody can see everybody else. So that's been helpful in that regard. Let me ask you this, both of you: what are the advantages from working from home, both to the employer and the employee? And Kevin, you want to touch this one first?
Yeah, working in the Bay Area, obviously, housing has always been an issue, and so folks are actually working farther away from the core or from their office location, and so that adds commute time. And I mean, I have staff who actually is, could be 100 miles away, 120 miles away. And it could be a 2-3 hour drive. And so in the past, before the pandemic, they would be coming in on a Sunday and then work through Thursday, or maybe part Friday, and then leave early so that they can drive back home, right? And
wow.
So they've done that for years. And so now that we're coming back, now that we've done this this telecommute, I mean, the amount of time that folks are saving, even if you just commuted an hour away, which is, in this part of the world, it's 10 miles away. It'll take you an hour to get to the office. So that hour that you've lost in the morning driving into the office, and the hour that it's going to take you to get back home, those 2 hours are valuable. That could
huge,
be,
yeah.
That could be used for other things, right? And so,
well, it's certainly an advantage to the individual. How about the employer? Is there any advantage for the employer for people working at home?
Well, I think there's lots of advantages. I mean, for the employer, knowing that their staff is actually working, if they were working from home and saving that time, they're going to put more effort into the work, the core hours that they're working. There's a lot more product that's going to be coming out of that employee than they would otherwise have gotten.
They feel better about saving that 2 hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about you, Don? What's your
take? First, I totally agree on the commute thing. I mean, it takes me 4 minutes to get to work during the summer. When the students are on campus, it takes me almost 6 or 7 minutes to get home. So it
wow.
just no.
I mean, Don.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the advantages some people are looking at. At least I've talked to about the idea of going to a full teleworking type of atmosphere is rather than leasing a building for all your employees to come work in, you can get out of that lease. Have people work from home, save them money.
That's an excellent point. Yeah.
Even here at the university, if we were to maybe have people telework 2 or 3 days a week, there's buildings we could, we wouldn't have to air condition and heat as much. There's potential cost savings.
Yeah.
The issue of the workload thing is interesting because some people were concerned that people working from home wouldn't work as much, but I think that the data is probably showing that they are working more because they want to prove that they're getting the job done.
Right.
And they don't have coworkers stopping in to chat about,
going through their candy dish. That was always the issue in my office. The candy dish was people dropping in, and my wife says, "Why don't you stop that?"
There's pros and cons of definitely.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about it from that standpoint of people putting more effort into it, and both of you have mentioned that. How about disadvantages? Kevin, can you think of any particular disadvantages to this whole working at home thing?
Well, I think the disadvantage is obviously the tools, right? You need the right tools to be able to do the work, the job at the office. And so, but if you are equipped with the right tools, printer, workspace, and
Right.
all of those good things.
Wi-Fi, all that stuff.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi that actually works and all of that. I think then I don't think there's much disadvantage other than the collaboration, the face-to-face effort,
Oh,
and
yeah.
all of that, which is something that we should probably chat about in a different, not a different time, but in a different part of this, because
Right.
that's a huge disadvantage, is losing that collaboration. And we know that this works, but that's because we're forced to do it. Well, maybe we'll just chat it right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, some of the bigger companies, the high tech, the
Right.
marketing companies, things like that, they've got very open office atmospheres,
Right.
so that people will run into each other. They can take their laptops and go sit outside and talk to each other. And if everybody's working from home, you're going to lose the collaboration. And I'm wondering about, these other sessions we've done. We've got 100 years of purchasing experience. We know what best practices are. In this situation, none of us know what best practices are. So I'm just wondering how that's going to pan out over the years. I mean,
Right.
not just a year from now, but 5 or 10 years from now. How is it going to impact people as far as their interactions with each other?
Mm-hmm.
We had a bid opening yesterday, and I saw a vendor that I hadn't seen in over a year.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had the bid opening, but he and I sat and talked for 5 or 10 minutes before and 5 or 10 minutes afterwards, just catching up.
Yeah.
You don't have that in the virtual world. At least I haven't experienced it.
Right. Unless you go out of your way, I guess, to contact them. And if you have a Zoom account or something, you could certainly set up something with the vendor. Let's jump on to the next thing I wanted to ask about. Are there potentially unintended consequences from doing one or the other, from staying? Let's stay with, before we get to talking about hybrid, are there unintended consequences from doing one or the other, from just coming into the office or staying home?
I think the unintended consequences is just the stuff that we just don't know, right? What we don't know is the mental drain or the mental impact,
right,
to a lot of folks, either coming into the office or continue this to work from home, right? It's we don't know what the impact is to the individual that is working, either way. And so it's a tough thing to predict, just because this is change ultimately, right? Yeah. It was a change when we actually left the office to work from home. I think back, 15 months ago when all of this happened, it was like, oh my God, what am I going to do, right? Yeah. And then now that we're thinking about bringing folks back to the office, it's, oh my God, what am I going to do?
What are you going to do? Yeah. How about you, Don? Can you think of any unintended consequences?
Well, like Kevin said, we don't know what we don't know. But again, I wonder about training people. You hire a new person.
Yeah.
Part of their training is learning the culture of the organization.
Right.
Are we going to be able to do that virtually?
Right.
I don't know. I haven't experienced it, so I can't say.
Yeah.
This is an awesome atmosphere. We're in 3 different time zones talking and having a good conversation. Yeah. But there's still some things missing from that we would be different if we were all in the same room. So we don't know what we don't know, and I don't know how soon we can find out. I'm sure people are going to do research, but
Right. After this is over,
have to-
be writing a PhD paper on it or something. Kevin brought up an interesting point about the mental health aspect of it, and it's we often think about our coworkers as a type of family, and 8, 9 hours a day you're hanging around the office, going to meetings, people are dropping by, you're having collaborations in the hallway and such. A friend of mine has one of his staff lives alone and doesn't really have a connection with anybody else, working from home, and he's been concerned about her all this time. He checks in with his people periodically to see how they're doing, but that if you're a social person and that's a huge part of your human interaction every day, and now you're just you're at home, and spouses can get on each other's nerves, and if you're homeschooling children, whatever that is, that's something we haven't even touched on. But maybe you're just by yourself with a dog or a cat or a parakeet or something. What that, like Kevin said, that mental health thing. Are people going to be really? Some folks want to get back in the office. How do we deal with that? Just accept it, or what?
Well, so I mean, as leaders, I think we have to look at this from the perspective of change management.
Right.
And this pandemic obviously has done an irreparable change in the way what the office looks like, or what working looks like, and we have to figure out how do we manage this change with our folks. And I think the biggest thing I would say to all leaders out there is be compassionate leaders. Be the compassionate leaders. I'm going to say it one more time. Be the compassionate leaders, because it's important that that we are open to the impact that this may have on folks who have been thrust into working from home last March, and then to now having to change again and coming back into the office. And so, I would say, if you're a leader, be that compassionate leader, and understand as much as you can about this impact, this change, and the impact it has on the employees.
That kind of helps me on this next issue. Jump over to Don. And one of the things about how have employees felt appreciated? Has there been a different feeling in that regard, or how's that going to work with folks coming back to work?
Yeah, I read one article that talked about that, and it goes right along with what Kevin's saying about, I would say, be compassionate and aware, because when people were working from home, their bosses, the people in their office were checking on them. Are you okay? People were seriously concerned about other people's health and well-being, their families and everything. And as they come back to the office, and it goes back to, quote, normal.
Yeah.
They don't ask as much about your health and your well-being and your family and your grandparents and whatever. And some people are feeling less appreciated now than they did during the worst part of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so that compassion, but also an awareness of, your employees and what they need. And again, it gets back to, we don't know. We don't know. It's hard to know what they need right now, because none of us have ever been here before. But we've learned a lot in the past year, that's for sure.
That's for sure. Well, what you as a way of wrapping up here, Kevin, have you got any particular last points you'd like to make?
No, I think just going back to that, the compassionate leadership part of this, and that is, it's really important, and the change has impacted all of us, not just our staff, but all of us, right? We do things a little bit differently during this process as leaders, and our employees have done things a little bit differently during this pandemic. And so what we need to do is manage this change as we move into the next chapter. And that is, we have to do it in a way that actually continue to carry forward that the process that we did. So if we're checking in on staff on a regular basis, we need to continue to do that as we move into the next phase, because we can't just cut it off and just say, you know what, you're on your own, right? And then that just,
it's all over. We're back to normal.
We're back to normal. The world doesn't work that way, and people don't work that way. And we have created a new set of expectations. I really think this hybrid mentality is going to stick. I mean, and you're going to edit this out, but let me just kind of, let me just get on a rant a little bit here. So, because this is really important to me. I think what people don't realize, I may have lost.
No, you're there.
Okay, good.
You're there.
So, it felt like I was stuck for a little bit there, the bandwidth. But I think every major event in history changed the way we do things.
Right.
And if we look at flexible work schedule, remember the boomers and the Gen Xers, right? The 80s.
Everybody in between.
Turning point, right? And so the Gen Xers were the lazy, good for nothing folks. I'm one of those Gen Xers, and that hasn't been the case. We have forced the workforce or the workplace to adapt to this new environment of flexible schedule. And remember, we didn't have that before. Everybody goes to work 8 to 5, right?
You show up.
And so, but that has changed forever. No one thinks about 8 to 5 anymore. It's all hours, right? 4:10, 8-9, whatever, or 9-8, and so it's a number of different ways that we have changed the work schedule.
Okay.
This pandemic has changed the way we do things, and that is, what does the office look like, right? And that is going to be forever changed, and we have to adapt to that change. And that is, it could be work partly from home and work partly from the office.
A hybrid model,
A hybrid model, and that is, and that's something that we have to think about and willing to adapt. The sooner we adapt, the sooner we can get back to being productive members of the workforce.
Any last comments from you, Don, or is that pretty much?
I basically agree with everything Kevin said, but I just wanted to add.
Okay.
That's one thing that I'm really thankful for is the NIGP family.
Oh yeah.
And I urge everyone to continue to have conversations like this about what's working, what's not working, what your concerns are, because as you say, Kevin, we're going to adapt, but with the NIGP family helping us to adapt, we'll get there sooner.
Okay, well, I hope we've been able to offer you all some pointers out there that you can talk about amongst yourselves or your different agencies and so on. So we'll sign off for now and hope to see you on a future Radio NIGP event. Take care.
Returning to the office, a concept that's relevant to some and not to others. Many during the pandemic continued to work in the office and never worked remotely at all. Others couldn't imagine being forced to work remote and were stressed when they had to do just that. After many months of working remote, it seemed that now they were excited and were perfectly content to be working at home and were horrified at the idea of having to go back to the office. Bless our hearts, the struggle has been real. but we are determined to overcome, adapt, and improvise through it all. The key thing to remember, regardless of where you are in your feelings of returning or remaining in the office, know that not everyone feels the same way you do, and that is okay. Some people will wear a mask, and others, they won't. Some will be obsessively worried about hand washing, and others, not so much. Some will respect those social distancing boundaries, and others won't be as concerned about it. Some will choose to be vaccinated, others won't. Some will be super excited. Persons will be excited to meet and be back in the office, and some are going to be really bummed and nervous about the possibility of outside exposure. There's many extremes on the scale of comfort and a variety of stops in between. The truth is, though, it's all about change management. Change is hard and it can be challenging to adapt to. People process elements of change at different rates and in different ways. Be sensitive to those around you and extend a hand of hope and grace rather than frustration and aggravation when adapting to this next normal. Communication is a key part in managing the change process, so keep those communication lines open and remember that listening is a key ingredient in communication. And if you really want to challenge yourself, think about this. Just because you can say something about any part of where we are in the spectrum doesn't always mean you should. That's definitely a challenge to remember. Anyway, folks, regardless of where you are, hang in there, stay safe, be well, and continue to grow and be the best you that you can be. We'll see you next time on Things That Make You Go, Have a good one.